So I want to talk about security, okay, and the feeling of security, the internal security, feeling like I'm secure and feeling like I'm safe. So I'll start with the premise that we were conditioned to find security and even safety outside of us. And there are some practical things about this, but our beliefs, and if you think about it, the way we were raised in our families when we were little kids, we were very much reliant upon our parents. And so security in a very real sense and safety was outside of us. And then sometimes our parents even told us what their security relied on, which is maybe they shared a little more than would have been ideal. But anyway, that's how we learned. And then as we went on in life, we got things outside of us that seemed to provide this security, right? We got a job, we got, place to live, we got community, we got things outside of us, friends and relationships and family, that we could rely upon. And we still have some of those things, hopefully anyway. And, but recently, the world has really been changing. You may have noticed, and it kind of came to a real big thing during COVID when our whole idea of what I call certainty got challenged. Like a lot of the things that we relied upon and we were certain would always be there for us started falling away and crumbling. And we were like, grasping. It's kind of like that little book, I think it was a kid's book like that, Who Moved My Cheese? It felt like, something moved the things that we relied on and that we thought were certain for us were no longer certain. Of course, this has been happening for a while, right? My parents' generation, my dad worked for Bethlehem Steel and he had like a career job, and he had a pension, and he knew if he just didn't screw up royally, and he just showed up for work and did a decent job, he was kind of guaranteed a job throughout his life, Well, that is obviously very gone. And really the time that had that industrial post-World War II time was really only about 50 years, like what, 1950, 45 till like maybe the 2000 is maybe when it started falling apart, but this isn't a history lesson. I'm just saying that the time that we had that certainty was kind of short-lived, and now it's not there anymore. And so we're left with, so if we put these things together, right, we were reliant on certainty, and not certainty, but we relied on security and safety outside of ourselves. And now the things that we relied on are not there, or they're changing or shifting so much that we can't really rely on them. We're left feeling insecure, as a people, some of us more than others, but so that's kind of the challenge. And so I want to provide hopefully some solutions to this. So true security is what I call it. Just made that up recently. True security it comes from inside of ourselves. Okay? It comes from trusting ourselves. It comes from trusting Spirit and God and the universe, the earth, to support us and to, provide for us. So this is all in belief stuff. The personal belief, we used to call it trusting your survivability. That's the trusting yourself. And what that means is it's like trusting that no matter what comes along, that you'll have the wherewithal to find a way to survive it. And it really is like survival. One of the things that, when there's a lot of trauma that has happened, and there's a lot of undiagnosed trauma, in my opinion. I just see it all the time in my work. And the whole idea, the definition of PTSD actually is that you thought you could die from a result of this thing happening. So it really does get into survivability. And we used to talk about, trusting your survivability. And we prove that by life throws us things and we find a way to survive it. And then we learn to trust ourselves more, And the other thing we can do is we can trust, the universe. We can trust the earth. We can trust spirit. And I've been doing some exercises, in my sharing circle and other places, these meditations. And a lot of it is just trusting your connection to the earth, and there's a lot of talk these days about grounding, which I think is amazing, because it's like, and from trauma too, we get, we dissociate, and, it's really good to reground with the earth. And one of the things that I like to do is sit in a meditation. And I just did this last night in the sharing circle. It's like envision yourself like a tree, and that your roots of the tree go deep, deep into the earth, and then the leaves of the tree, absorb the sunshine and nourish you. You're supported by spirit, by God, by the universe. You're supported by the earth from below. And I just envision this taproot in the meditation I did. Envision this taproot that goes down to the center of the earth and kind of anchors you. And if you can feel that energy, and there's some obvious, I'm sitting down right now, and so the bottoms of my feet are touching the earth. Well, they're touching the floor, but by extension, the earth. And then my butt, is also sitting on the chair. So we got, and we got energy centers there. At the bottom of our feet are energy centers. Our root chakra is kind of at the base of our spine, and our butt, and the root chakra is where that grounding really, really happens, and it goes deep in. So when I'm sitting here, I can envision, or if I'm even meditating, on a chair, or a little different in a half lotus, but your root chakra is still against the earth, or even at my work desk. Okay, I can envision, energetically connecting with the earth. I can feel the earth's energy in my feet. I can feel the earth's energy, coming up my spine, and I can feel that taproot going down. And and there's other things we can do too. Of course, another meditation I really like is getting yourself in either lying down or getting a really comfortable chair that you can just totally let go and let the chair or the earth. You can do it outside too. It's really good. At your backyard or out in nature, is just lie down and allow the earth or a chair or the floor or your bed totally support you. And then you can just totally let go, and then allow whatever you're lying on, which I like the floor is an extension of the earth, is allow it to totally support you. Like I can let go and the earth catches me, spirit catches me, and then you can kind of just allow that out. And so there's all kinds of cool grounding. You can Google this. There's all kinds of cool grounding exercises. One of my favorites is if you go barefoot in the wet sand, like near the ocean, or maybe a riverbed or lake bed or whatever body of water is closest to you, and you go barefooted in the damp sand or earth, the water helps ground you, and bare feet on this, it is really, really grounding. And then you can just envision, you grounded to the earth and you being anchored, and like that taproot is like embedded and connected to the center of the earth. And then we're like a tree, right? We're like unshakable. If you look at trees, they're flexible too. The wind can blow them, but they're anchored so much by their roots, that they don't blow over. Well, unless there's really, really big hurricane. But I mean, even that, some of the trees, the more flexible ones, actually, it's a whole other, we could do a whole other blog on flexibility. But for now, we're talking about anchoring and feeling secure. So by doing this, we're connected to the earth, and like we start believing and experiencing, not just believing, but our truth becomes that the earth has our back, and we can let go and allow the earth to support us. We can let go, and like spirit supports us, and we can learn to trust in our own survivability. And all these things are rooted inside of me, right? They're not dependent on things outside of me. Maybe a little bit the earth and spirit, but even that, I can be one with the earth and one with spirit. So even that's not totally outside. And it's also, they're constant things. They do have certainty. For the most part, at least in our lifetime, you can count on the earth being there, and energetically, spirit will always be there. At least that's what my truth tells me. And so these are things that have certainty. They can be relied on, not like the water that goes through our fingers as we try to hold it with the things outside of us. They're things we can rely on. So that is my video for this week. It's just really an invitation to find your way. These are some ways that work for me and hopefully for some of my clients. But like, find your ways that you can connect with the earth and connect with spirit and find your own survivability by proving that you can survive. And then rely on those things rather than things outside. And then if you find things outside of you that you can rely upon, that's just a bonus, right? And then you can rely on friends and relationships and community as well. Those are also really cool things. But today I'm focusing on those things that come from like inside of us and connecting to things like that. So that is my video for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome week and that you can find some true security. You can find that from inside yourself, and you can experience, rely on the earth, rely on spirit, and on your survivability. I will see you in a week.